Hey everybody, we're back again. You can kind of see I'm probably wearing the same shirt and stuff from the last video because I shot this the same day. It's not beer either, by the way. This is actually cold brew. Gave up craft beer. I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for that, but it was really jacking up my sleep, guys, and I just can't deal with it anymore. So 3 weeks, no craft beer. It is what it is. I'll survive. But I did get one of those, if you guys are coffee connoisseur junkies out there like I am, I just got a Coffee Ninja and thing's pretty awesome. So I've been making all kinds of crazy coffee drinks with it and got my cold brew in there, so I'm all excited. But anyway, we're going to do another Dave Goulet pattern today. This is a super simple one. You've probably seen this one in one of Dick Touleur's books, Fly Patterns of the 21st Century. Dave used to tie this one in his class. It was one of his patterns that he would have in there for most of his students because it was a really simple one. What I love about this fly, and what we're tying today, is the Hi-Vis Caddis. What I love about this fly is it's ridiculously simple, but it really takes into consideration proportions of a natural caddis fly. So one thing that Dave used to harp on was, you know, there's patterns out there, they work regardless of whether their proportions are slightly off. Like elk hair caddis, for example. I mean, an elk hair caddis is a time-tested pattern, but if you were to actually take that particular fly and compare it to some of the caddis flies that are out there, you know, the proportions are slightly off a little bit. You know, wings. You know, the body of a caddis fly is usually about 2/3 the length of the wing. So, you know, a regular. I don't know if you can hear that chewing. That's a squirrel trying to get into my house right now. Good times, right? Unbelievable. Can't make this stuff up. But you know, a lot of your caddis patterns where, you know, you tie a size 12, it would actually imitate, you know, a fly slightly bigger. So Dave was really big on, with this particular flies, he was trying to imitate some of the smaller caddis that we would encounter around here with some minimal materials, but also by using, at the time, some synthetics, which was, you know, something new to some of these, you know, dry fly patterns. You know, EP has since come out with a whole line of trigger point fibers and dubbings and stuff like that that have been popularized. But, you know, Dave did this decades ago. So, you know, he was kind of ahead of his time on that. This is just kind of a really small, I guess you could say, cross-section of, like, you know, how influential this gentleman was for tying. So we'll tie this little Hi-Vis Caddis today. Funny thing is, I don't have any high-vis material left, but I'm going to show you some other synthetics that work for it. I'm going to try it as true to form as Dave would, and if there's any substitutions in it, I'll discuss that. I'm probably going to tie this in a tan or a brown, but I'll figure that out when I get there. But without no further ado, we'll sit down, we'll tie this little caddis pattern. Thing's killer, catches a lot of fish, been catching fish on it recently. And any of you places, any of you guys out there, or girls that have any places with smaller caddis, this is a pattern you're going to want to put in your box. And it's ridiculously durable too, so you don't have to worry about it blowing apart after like 1 or 2 fish. Other than that, that's about it, and let's get at it. Alright folks, so now, today, we're going to tie the Dave Goulet Hi-Vis Caddis. This is a very simple pattern. It utilizes some synthetic. In my opinion, it was ahead of its time. I know there's a push for a lot of the synthetics now in dry flies, which is not new. Dave was probably one of the guys that really kind of put this stuff on the map. I don't have the exact materials for this. I'm all out of Hi-Vis right now, but we're going to use another very similar material for the wing on this pattern. This is about as easy as it gets, folks. This is a great small caddis pattern. So I tie these, and Dave used to sell these in his shop from like a 16 all the way down to probably like a 24, and a multitude of colors. I'm going to tie this in the brown configuration today. This is probably the one that's most of us around here fish in my neck of the woods and are familiar with. So I have a Partridge K4A SE hook in the vise, one of these guys right here, which is basically just like a short shank scud style straight hook, almost like a TMC 2499. You could use a 2488 TMC. MFC actually has a hook like this now too. I think it's called, let me just take a look. It's their straight eye caddis and chironomid hook. It's another great little hook to use. They're all identical, pretty much the same thing. All right. So I'm using some 10-aught Hi-Vis in brown. That's going to be our thread today. And I'm just going to start by putting a small thread base down on the hook. And we're going to go right about to where the bend starts. Once you get there, we're going to use some of this Caddis Antron blend, Jack Mankiewicz stuff. Stuff's great. Dub a little bit in brown. Less is more. This is going to take up about 2/3 of that hook shank. What you're going to find with this particular fly for a caddis imitation, unlike many of the other ones that are commercially tied or traditionally tied, what Dave did with this, and you can kind of see I've made it relatively bulbous, just like a normal caddis. Dave's thought process was he wanted to make, instead of being limited to the length of the shank of the hook, he wanted to keep proportions relatively correct, because a caddis fly, if you look at them, the body's about 2/3 the length of the wing. So by using this shorter shanked hook, you can kind of accomplish that. Now there's two parts to the wing on this. We're going to use some like tan crystal flash. So I take one strand and we're just going to kind of cut it in half. We're going to tie this in the middle, and then we're going to fold that rearward, just like you see here. You can trim them if you want. We'll just let it go for now. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to use some brown ice fur. If you have Hi-Vis, use Hi-Vis. It's a little stiffer, but this stuff's just a hair softer and it works pretty well. You could also use EP trigger point fibers if you'd like. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to lay this forward, just like you see here. So you take half of what you need. Whoop. Try not to do just that. Just try and catch it. A couple turns over it. And then we're going to do a couple turns over the back, bringing it rearward. I put a half hitch on here because I don't want this to pull. Now when I go to trim this for my wing, it's going to be roughly just back here past where the back end and the bend of the hook is. So you see I've stopped my body here. If I bring my scissors right to there and trim it, now I've got that wing exactly the length I intended it for. Now the last little trick on here is we're going to go in and take a piece of brown Brahma hen, you see here, and you're going to want to take it from the bottom here. So on the bottom of these Brahma hen capes are the smallest hen feathers you can find. See these little tiny things here? They make fantastic little wet flies. You're going to take one of these guys and you're going to pull it out. And we're going to, you got to try and find this one of the smaller ones that's on here. Alright, this is where it can be kind of problematic, especially if you got fat fingers like me. So that's about the size we want. What we're going to do is we're going to go in here at the bottom where the fluff is, and we're going to pull some of those fibers apart, just like so. Then we're going to take that feather, lay it right in front of you at a 45-degree angle so you can kind of see the stem. That's going to help us catch that stem with about 5 or 6 turns right where it needs to be. Trim that off. Now what I suggest, if you've got fat fingers like me, you could put a half hitch on there too, just to make sure she doesn't come off. Let's get yourself some hackle pliers. And all you need for this is legitimately 2 turns. Catch it with the thread, 2 turns over it, 1 in front. Trim that off. And what Dave used to do with his, he used to just take a half hitch tool and do a series of half hitches, but I'm going to do a whip finish with my whip finish tool. You could put some resin on there if you want. Trim it. Now to finish this fly off, we don't just leave it like that. What you're going to do is come in here with your scissors, trim the top, trim the bottom, So that's flush. So you're just going to have a couple of little, those are the appendages. And he kind of is of the same school of thought as kind of AK Best. AK Best uses a lot of wet, like hen feathers on a lot of his dry flies, just because you get a little bit more motion and stuff in there. This little caddis pattern, folks, is killer. For you guys that fish the Farmington or any of the tailwaters that have smaller caddis, this little guy is just money. And if I had shut my mouth and just tied this, you can probably tie this in about 1:30 seconds. And you just basically got to change the colors for all your smaller caddis, and you're good to go. So that's the Hi-Vis Caddis, altered a little bit with some materials. Super, super simple. Hope you enjoyed it. And thank Dave for this one, because this is probably one of his better patterns as well. And I'll be tying some more stuff for you. Thanks for tuning in. Talk to you guys soon.